Yo, what's up everybody? It's me, Weeb here, back with part 2 for what if Subaru was a shadow dragon slayer. Last time, which was yesterday, Subaru had defeated Elsa Granhirt in combat and was about to finish her off and deal the killing blow before Reinhard van Astrea, the most powerful being perhaps in all of ReZero, had arrived, planning to take in the Bowel Hunter. Yet, unexpectedly, Reinhardt would realize that he could actually unsheath the legendary dragon sword, Reed, which has been passed down from one sword saint to the next for generations. Luckily, before anything was escalated because of Subaru, Reinhardt, being a kind knight, just would let it go for now. Just curious on who Subaru is, interested that someone like that would be worthy of Reed, the legendary sword. Emillia would take Subaru with her, as Subaru had been promised the deal, as Subaru and Emillia would return to Roswaal's estate. We begin our story here, as Subaru wakes up the next morning, after having finally made it to the mansion late at night with Emillia. Just like the original ReZero timeline, the two twin sisters, Rem and Ram, would have come to the guest chambers in order to wake him, to prepare him for his meeting with the Lord. That Lord being, of course, Roswaal himself. Anyhow, Subaru would be woken just like the original timeline. With Rem and Ram standing in the room, Subaru would open his eyes, quickly rubbing them as he feels the blurriness now basically melting away. Subaru would sit up, noticing the two inverted hair color girls, as he would then ask, what's up? Remembering him and Emillia having made it to the mansion last night and him just falling asleep in some room. Naturally, he would have no idea who these two are. Sister, our guest has woken up, Ram would say. Sister, I think you're right, Rem would reply back, as the two of them would begin to have their weird third-person conversations that they used to have during this arc. Anyway, Subaru would pull himself up as he then asks the girls if they know where Satella is. She's the woman who had brought her with him to the mansion last night. This comment would actually set off Ram and Rem, as they then berate Subaru for calling her that. Subaru, having no idea who Satella is or what that implication means, would be confused, as he's asking, what? As the two of them are getting angry at him. This would be when Emillia then opens the door and then tells the girls to calm down, explaining that she had used an alias with Subaru, introducing her actual name is Emillia. Emillia would explain to Subaru that the name Satella is a nickname given to her because of her appearance, her being a silver-haired half-elf, which is the same appearance as the Witch of Envy, Satella. Anyway, since explaining the whole fairy tale about the Witch of Envy to Subaru would take too long, they decide that they're just going to head over to Roswaal's for lunchtime. As Subaru is trying to leave the room, he'd suddenly be grabbed by Rem on his arm. Excuse me, I'm supposed to be going somewhere. Rem would make a pouting face as she then shakes her head, telling Subaru that there's no way she can present him to the master like that. The Master Roz was going to think they're running a charity home or something for the homeless. Subaru would begin to get a little pissed off, as this is now the 5th or 6th time he's been mistaken as some random homeless person on the street. Look, I just didn't have the opportunity to get a... That's when Rem would interrupt saying, a haircut, yeah. Leave that to me. As Rem would grab Subaru, Ram pushing him from behind, as they bring Subaru and push him down to a chair. Emillia walking away, she says she'll leave him to them. As Subaru asks, wait, what are they doing? As Rem would then work on giving Subaru his new haircut. While Rem was working on Subaru's new do, Ram would go and pick some clothes out for Subaru, considering that what he was currently wearing was not... No, it was not clothes. It was more like rags. Before Rem could even give Subaru a haircut, she would force Subaru to take a bath, just to make it easy on herself, Subaru doing so. As Subaru washes his no-shower Call of Duty looking ass, Subaru would look in the mirror as he sees himself for the first time, in what has been a long time. Besides just looking in river or water reflections, Subaru would see himself, as Subaru now has like an 8-pack, is ripped, and also looks like a total hobo. Damn, No wonder everyone thought I was poor, Subaru would say, crying. Subaru would leave the bath as he dries himself, looking for his clothes, which are gone. Subaru would then turn as he notices the new clothes that had been prepared for him by Rom. Subaru would put on the gray button-down shirt and the black pants. Also some shoes being given to him. Some just black leathers. As Subaru would pull them on, Subaru looking in the mirror would look far different now. More like a butler, if anything. Well, aside from his hair, which is still ridiculously long. Subaru coming back into the room, his muscles rippling under the shirt from his gains from Skiadrum. Subaru would actually look presentable now, as Rom and Rem would be both impressed, giving each other a thumbs up, saying that they're makeover wizards. This would be when Rem would finish doing Subaru's haircut, as she decides to leave it somewhat longer, but still shorter than what it is now, cutting off a majority of it, since, for reference, Subaru's hair was going down like all the way down his back, and now he has his haircut down to his neck. So Subaru would have a spiky look, almost like what Natsu had during his return to the Grand Magic Games, just to keep his overall feel the same, but also not look like he hasn't had a haircut in several years, which he hadn't. Anyway, now that I'm finished describing Subaru's new look to you, it was time for Subaru to meet the long-awaited master. As Subaru, joining with Rem and Rom, would walk into the room, seeing Emillia and a clown. Subaru would be a bit confused, asking where the master is, as Emillia, Rom, and Rem would just look at him. Roswaal would clear his throat. Well, that would be me, of course. Oh, Subaru would say. Well, that's my bad, mister. It's nice to meet you. Subaru would say awkwardly. Emillia, Rem, and Rom just face-palming mentally at this point. Subaru would take a seat as Roswaal would offer the same proposition that he had in the original timeline to Subaru, offering one deal to Subaru. In this version, Subaru is not preoccupied worried about a job of some kind, so he would just directly ask what he'd been trying to get Emillia to tell him the last time, asking what year it is and where the hell he is. Roswaal would tell Subaru that he's in the great kingdom of Lagunica, also known as the Dragon Kingdom of Lagunica, and it's one of the 4 great nations. After Roswaal and Subaru talk, Subaru would come to realize that he's not been sent back in time, and that this world is not the same one he came from. No. Somehow he's been sent to a parallel world. Subaru would be contemplating this, wondering why he can still use magic so easily. As Subaru thinks about it, he realizes that there's a ton of Ethereon in the air, and that there must be some other way the people here use magic, since he's seen Emillia use it. Subaru would turn and ask Emillia how she used magic that other time. Oh, you mean with Puck? Emillia would summon Puck forward, as Subaru would then be explained to by Puck the gate. The gate being the location in your body that allows you to inhale and exude mana into magic. Asking if Subaru would like to know what his own mana type is. Explaining the several different types being earth, water, air, and fire. Puck would scan Subaru and check his mana type, and he would be Shadow. Subaru wouldn't even be surprised, as he already knows, as he then asks Puck what that means. Emillia would say that Shadow magic is pretty much useless for anything besides debuffs. Subaru would immediately realize this isn't true, as he then tells Emillia that's a lie. They would all look at him strangely, as Subaru would then sit back down. Sorry, go on. Subaru would realize that these people have an incredibly limited idea of how shadow magic works. Subaru potentially being one of the only people who can use offensive shadow magic in the world. Of course, Subaru in this timeline has not met Beatrice yet. Anyhow, Subaru would listen to their explanations. He then asks Puck if he'll try it out with him. Subaru pretending to be a novice. Roswaal would quickly smile, saying that's a wonderful idea, as he then tells Puck and asks if he'd be willing to help teach Subaru. Roswaal would then ask Subaru if there's anything else he wants besides just that information, as Subaru would then ask Roswaal if it'd be okay if he stays here for a while. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a freeloader or anything. I'll do chores or anything else if you want, really. Just, I don't really have anywhere else to go right now anyway. Oh, but despite how it seems, I'm actually super strong, so if you need me to be a bodyguard or something, I can handle that. Basically, no one in the room would believe this except Roswaal. saying, "That sounds like a splendid idea," taking Rem and Rom with him as he instructs Puck to continue. Subaru and Puck would then go outside as Puck would then tell Subaru to focus on his mana and how it feels. Subaru closing his eyes, remembering when he was being trained by Skialdrum all those years ago. He remembered having to learn how to even use magic or feel it at all, which was really rough at the time. Subaru closing his eyes would envision it, as Puck would then tell him to use Shamak. Shamak being a simple shadow spell. Subaru, of course, having never heard of this, would then try his best. Puck would tell him to visualize exuding the mana from his gate, as Emillia would be standing far away to not get caught in if Subaru screwed it up. Puck would then tell him to use it, as Subaru would open his eyes saying, "Shamak." Suddenly, a humongous burst of Shamak would come blasting out of Subaru's hand, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as Puck's beginning to realize that Subaru's mana capacity is huge. "Subaru, stop! Stop!" Subaru would stop using Shamak, not even feeling a little bit tired, as he asked if that's all. Puck would say, "That was a lot for your first time. I don't believe you. Your mana's way too controlled." Subaru would smirk, saying it's not actually his first go using shadow magic, as he asked Puck if he wants to spar with him, throwing a few punches. Puck would laugh, saying maybe not, as he asked Subaru if he wants to see how shadow magic works on him. Subaru would be interested as he asked Puck to show him, as Puck would then use Shamak on Subaru. As the shadow would surround Subaru, nothing would happen. Huh? Subaru would say, as he reaches out and pokes Puck. "Well, this is pretty useless. It's just a bunch of smoke." Subaru would then breathe in, sucking up all of the shadows, as he then consumes the shadows, now replenishing his magical power. "Ah, that was a good meal. Wow, Puck, your shadows taste pretty good," licking his lips. This would be when Subaru would smile, saying he wants to show Puck something impressive. "Oi, Emillia," he'd say. "What?" Emillia would call from far away. "Come here." Subaru would then ask Emillia to create some ice and make a huge ice pillar, which she'd do. Subaru would then tell them all to take us several steps back, as Subaru runs back by 100 meters, as then tells them if they're ready. Puck would then give him the thumbs up, as Subaru then says, "Watch this," as Subaru closes his eyes, opening them. Subaru would take a deep breath in. "Shadow Dragon's secret art. Shadow Dragon's roar." As Subaru then roars a huge blast of darkness at the pillar. This would be impressive, not only to Emillia, but also to Puck, as the entire sculpture would be shattered to pieces by Subaru's attack. "I still got it," Subaru would say. Subaru would realize something though. Using his normal magic and then using this weird spell that Puck had given him, he'd feel like there were two different gates. This being Subaru's beginning to realize of the second origin. For those of you who don't understand what that is, basically back during the Grand Magic games, Natsu and the rest of his party had gone on that little filler quest where they wasted all their time that they would have been training for the Grand Magic games, and then had to be saved by Jalal's partner who can use time magic, and who would then use her ability to awaken their second origins, which basically gives you a whole new way of using your mana and magic power, and gives you just a huge increase. That's how Natsu became strong enough to take on both Sting and Rogue by himself. So Subaru would come to realize, not even knowing what a second origin is, that there was another gate inside of his body, being two gates. One which he was accustomed to using, and the other one being the second origin that Puck had forced him to use. This is just some narration here, but basically what I'm saying is that the people in ReZero have their origins reversed. So what would be your second origin in Fairytail is actually their regular origin in ReZero. Anyway, now that Subaru's magic test is over, he'd head back inside as he decides to help Ram and Rem with some chores, pulling his sleeves back, and he asks what he can do. Rama and Rem would actually be a bit more friendly to him in this timeline as well, since Subaru doesn't have the smell of the witch on him, since Subaru has not died yet. And another thing is that Subaru is not completely useless, since he wasn't a NEET in his past life. Subaru was living in the mountains and fending for himself alongside a dragon from the age of 8 years old. So Subaru is able to use a knife without cutting himself, and even if he does stab himself in the skin, his skin won't even break from the knife. The knife probably taking more damage than his hand. Subaru messing up and still having to learn how to cut the potatoes, getting frustrated at how much of a failure he currently is. Well, I can't even do this basic stuff, Subaru thinking, as he realizes that he had spent all of his time training. Subaru would also begin learning how to read and write in this strange language from this world, so that he isn't completely incapable of buying or doing anything. Subaru now being incredibly grateful for this, but also being terrible at it because he hasn't been to school in years. Subaru would be suffering from studying as he just slams his head into his desk saying, "This is miserable, I hate this." Rum just patting him on the back saying if he ever wants to learn, then he'd better get his head off his book. About a week has passed at this point, and it's around this time that we run into the first issue of this run. Subaru would have been poisoned. Subaru would wake up in the middle of the night feeling sick as he pulls himself out of bed feeling wobbly. What the... Subaru would feel shaky as he pulled himself out of bed as he decides he has to get out and start moving around. Subaru thinking he's just hungry as he then heads towards the kitchen. Subaru taking every step will begin moving slower, but since he is a dragon slayer, the poison on him would be nowhere near as effective. This being when Ram shows up. Ram showing up to kill Subaru under the thought that he could be an enemy spy. But Subaru is not weak. Subaru would turn, sensing the bloodlust, as he then immediately realizes it's Ram, seeing in the dark. Ram? Ram would be shocked, having been all the way down the other side of the hallway. Subaru would ask Ram what's going on, saying he feels kind of sick, and asks if she felt the same way. Ram would immediately pull out her mace as Subaru realizes what's going on. Ram? As the battle between Ram and Subaru would begin. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Subaru Was a Shadow Dragon Slayer, I hope you guys are looking forward to it because I'm going to try and have part 3 coming out within the week as well. And after that, I'm probably going to take a small break from this series and switch back to Meliodas' son and also Sukuna Subaru. I also might do some Naruto What Ifs or something for a while because I have been focusing a lot on ReZero and Black Clover for a little bit. So it might be a good time to switch it back up to like... what if Naruto had Sunshine or Genshin Naruto or something like that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Bye.